Hi everybody, how we doing? Matt from Hannah Fields here. Welcome to the sunshine and welcome to this early August 2026 tour of our beautiful little market garden down here in Derbyshire, England. As you can see, it's a bit of a windy one today, so I hope you can hear me nice and clear on the speaker. It's been absolutely baking. The sun has been out pretty much into the high sort of 20s, early 30s since my previous video. We've had no rain. We've had no rain since I think the second week of June, and as you can see, the majority of the land, our 2 acre space down here, is pretty much white and crispy and straw-like. We don't water the grass or anything down here, so we could certainly do with some rain. And the growing space has been okay. I think that's the best way to put it in terms of dealing with that drought. We're watering quite heavy. Things are lush and green. Some things are struggling, and a few losses along the way, but some benefits as well, which comes with, you know, intense heat, certainly in England. So we'll have a look around the growing space and show you how we're shaping up this early August. And I'm going to start down here with this side of what we call the pond bed. Now, these are courgettes, and courgettes love warmth, and if you keep them well watered and in decent fertile soil, they'll give you an abundance of crop. And that's what they're doing. We are literally picking hundreds of courgettes every minute, pretty much, it feels like. So these are thoroughly enjoying the warm spell that we're having. And as you can see, some nasturtiums, these are self-set nasturtiums, growing in between them. That's cool. They're acting pretty much as a layer to keep moisture in and obviously attracting beneficial insects to our area. Down the middle part of this bed, we have our second batch of beetroots, which are sort of limp at the minute. They're just chilling. They're just, you know, sort of conserving energy in the warm day that we've had. It's been 26, 27 today. But it's interesting, I always find, when I do my second batch of beetroot, because they always catch up with my first lot that I tend to sow in February and sort of plant out in March. And then these are sort of like late April, and they always end up bigger. And I think that's just down to daylight, photosynthesis, and the time of year being a bit more optimal in conditions. So all we tend to do with our beetroot, with our second batch, is leave it to just sort of chill in the ground and pick them as we need them. They're essentially just going to get bigger if we leave them in, and that's fine because it means more food. The beans have been interesting over the last sort of couple of 3-4 weeks since my previous video. Loss of flower, then they start dropping a bit of flour, and then they start podding the beans, and almost like maturing too early is probably the way I would describe it. I don't know if you guys have had a similar thing going on with your beans. By that I mean they're sort of growing this size and then sort of fattening and trying to produce seed really quickly. I think I've picked them all off. I can't see one at the minute, but we've had a few cooler nights, and what that's probably done is encourage more flower, and they're going again now, and you know, they're starting to crop nicely. But you know, as much as beans love the warmth, they don't like the drought and the intense heat. And they are a bit of a diva. I've just spotted a bean I was referring to. So this bean, for instance, see how it's going quite hard on the end, and that's not fully grown. A lot of beans were doing that, but like I say, they're starting to crop nicely now. And our French beans did a similar thing. Our first batch went in nicely. They've been cropping heavy for about 2 or 3 weeks. This one has been picked quite well, but as you can see, we've still got a lot of bean on, you know, and these plants are pretty much finished now. They just need harvesting. But our second batch of beans, they're slow. I'll just take you to this one, for instance. I mean, these should be sort of triple in size now. But this plant here, it's still really small. It's probably 3/4 of a foot in height, and it's just one of them things that happens when, you know, we get intense heat and not enough moisture and not enough rainfall. You know, we can only put so much, you know, sort of tap water, if you like, on our growing spaces. I mean, obviously tap water has chloride in it, and you know that reduces the ability for plants to absorb mineral content, and tap water in general has less minerals in as well. So if you're watering with tap water over a long period of time, in heat, you know, it can cause a bit of unbalance, shall we say, in the soil, and certainly with the plant's ability to absorb nutrients through their roots. Another bit of a negative, if it's one to say, of all this heat we've been having is lettuce. We've had, you know, sort of lettuces go in, and within sort of 3 or 4 weeks trying to go to seed and produce flower, which is an odd one. I've never had that before, but like I say, the amount of drought we've had, and they've been watered once, twice a day. There's a big gap here now, as you can see, amongst our lettuces. We've been planting them and they've been, like I say, going to seed. We do have more on the go, but it's going to be a couple of 3, 4 weeks before I get that in the ground, maybe 3 weeks. And yeah, we're just grateful for what we've got. This is the second time it's done this year, because we've had, like I say, lots of dry weather and big bouts of heat. The herb bed, we've just been sort of tidying this up really and giving it a bit of trim, which I tend to do in the summer, and create spaces for, you know, herbs that like a bit of cool. So we'll be planting things like coriander and parsley, which I sowed about 4 weeks ago in this bed soon. And that's a lovely, lovely taste of autumn. Parsley and coriander are ones we grow as we get into sort of like, you know, August into early September. They go in the ground and they crop lovely for the majority of autumn and winter. Okay, I'll change to the polytunnels. I'll start in poly number 2, as we call it, and we're met by grapes, which they're doing all right. Again, I was a bit concerned about grapes because they literally shriveled up. I mean, most of the grape vines in here have lost 20 to 30% of their fruit. Here's a good example. We have picked most of it off. You see these sort of like raisin looking things, but they're doing okay now, and we should anticipate these cropping as we get into September. So we are going to have fruit. Chilies have loved it. Chilies have done fantastic. They're really lush and green, and they're firing off lots of beautiful fruits. These are hot wax, and the first year of me growing these, and they're just starting to ripen, as you can see. And they've done great. But by contrast, if I flick you over to our peppers, it's got all this rot on it. Can you see the rot? Now that's normally stress through a lack of either nutrient deficiency in the soil or the ability for the plant to absorb nutrients. I think this is a lack of ability for the plants to absorb calcium. Bearing in mind there's 3 or 4 inches of homemade compost in here, brand spanking new, that I put in the latter part of winter. So I know it's not a nutritional deficiency in the soil, it's the inability for the plant to absorb it. So there's no point, I would suggest, in putting things like Epsom salts down to sort of encourage that absorption. I just think it's down to the heat. I can come in here after 24 hours and it's like sand, the soil on this particular side. I just think it's the way that the land works with where the clay deposits are here, and also the fact there's a big ass grapevine here as well. So yeah, so I think you gain some, lose some with this side, but they are giving us some fruits here and there that aren't sort of got this sort of bottom end rot on it, if you will. So we'll just leave them and see how they do. But the tomatoes, you know, they're doing grand. They're just starting to arch over now. We sort of tie them on strings and they arch over sort of the rest of the polytunnel structure, and they look fabulous. But yeah, as you can see, they are cropping lovely. Lots of varieties in here, things like Golden Sunrise and Gardener's Delight, Yellow Submarine, them sort of varieties, and a couple of beefsteak ones as well. Down here we have our first batch of basil, which we've been harvesting, and I keep picking out these, which are their attempt to go to seed. I picked them out because it encourages side shoots and you just get a little bit more basil for your money. But I've done that quite heavily on these, and they really are trying to do the flowering thing. But if they start to flower, they don't have the same sort of enthusiasm to give you side shoots. So yeah, I always encourage people to pull them out. Poly number 1 is an abundance of colour. Lots of varieties of tomatoes, again arching over now, giving us lots of crop. We've got tomatoes here and in the middle in this one, and they're doing fab, they're doing grand. They are giving us, you know, multiple trusts of beautiful vines, and it really is a taste of summer. All doing well. And as you can see, the peppers in here are slightly larger. You know, they're sort of up to nearly my chest, and they've not really got a problem with stress like the other peppers. You know, different growing environment, not competing too much with things like grapevines, and they're doing great. And we've got lots of beautiful fruits coming on here as well, as you can see. So that's all fab. Cucumbers have gone absolutely crazy. I picked 28 off here yesterday, and I've probably got the same again to harvest in the next 24 hours. Try to pick them when they're ready, because that encourages more flower and ultimately more fruits. But yeah, they've been cropping for about, I don't know, maybe 4 weeks now, 3 weeks, something like that. Really heavy, doing really well. And yeah, just trying to keep an eye on them though, because if it gets too dry in here, that encourages spider mite. And I think there is a little bit on here. But what I tend to do is just spray the leaves with some water, and it just keeps a bit of humidity in here, which, you know, spider mites don't tend to like too much. But for the best part, yeah, everything's doing pretty well in here. And as you can see, trying to have that overlap of crops as I always do. We've got another batch of basil that I sowed about 4 weeks ago, and that's gone in the ground now. So as this comes to an end, we've got another batch of basil in, which is a great herb and taste of summer. Okay, the main bed, which I have been doing a bit of work on today. In the centre here, we have our main crop of carrots, which we are harvesting through. And I've just cut the tops off them. They're getting a bit scraggly. They're probably creating habitats for slugs. And I just thought, you know, I'll trim the tops off them, and that'll allow me just to see what's going on, and also free up a little bit more space for our follow-on crop, which is red cabbages. Some of them I put in about 4 or 5 weeks ago. Some of them have been in there a week or so, on this side in particular. So there's got to be an overlap, and we'll just see how they do. But that's a great example of intercropping and overlapping your first and second crops. You know, the carrots are still there, not doing anything in terms of competing with the lovely cabbages, and the cabbages are in and hopefully chugging away to give us crops as we get into sort of October, November. Here is another great example of the same thing. This is main crop beetroot, and what we did is, as they were being harvested, we were enjoying them obviously, but at the same time freeing up space to allow our cabbages to grow on. Now, I did put these spaces for the cabbages. They were already ready to go, if that makes sense. You know, I didn't plant the beetroots every 40 centimetres. I left a gap, and, you know, they received our cabbages anyway. But obviously, as they grow, we harvest around the cabbages, just again to free up some more space and, you know, allow them to grow on without too much competitiveness for moisture. Down here, another second crop, which has really started to give it some now. They were a bit slow going in the ground, and they're a bit slow growing, but these are leeks, which are doing fab now. They're growing lovely, and I anticipate these cropping anytime sort of October-ish really onwards. And they're a variety called Bandit, so they stick in the ground, you know, a reasonable amount of time and do okay. Down here we have got Calavinero and curly kale, and we're just picking this as we need it really, whether we get orders from our customers or whether we want to eat it at home. And it will just continue to crop, this will, all the way through into cooler times, you know, October, November, December, and it'll give us a little bit more of a crop as we get into early spring next year. Exactly the same thing with our rainbow chard, an abundant crop which I always recommend to grow. It's in the top 5 superfoods in the world. The micronutrient efficiency of chard is insane, as is with most vegetables, but this one in particular, there's a lot of good stuff in there, and it's an easy crop to grow. So rainbow chard, as long as you're sort of planting it out in sort of like early May, it'll continue to give you a decent crop all the way through the year. This is second plantings, second crops on this side as well. So we had, what do we have down here? This was Derby Day cabbages for a late spring harvest. And as they were being harvested, we started to have gaps appear, and we went in with a third batch of beetroot, which are slowly starting to chug away now. And Swedes, which I think personally, these are too big for this time of year. They are, some of them, 3/4 in size of where they would be fully grown. And I think they are progressing quicker due to the weather we've been having. They don't look stressed. There's a little bit of flea beetle here and there, but that's what I would, you know, assume at this time of year would happen to most brassicas as you get into sort of midsummer. flea beetle becomes a thing. But as a general rule of thumb, they look okay. We continue to water them most days, and hopefully they'll just chug away, get a bit bigger quicker, and just sit there and enjoy the space until we want to harvest them. More second crops over here. We've lost a few here and there to some caterpillars. We had some white butterflies knocking around and they laid a few eggs, but in general this crop's doing okay. This is purple broccoli for next April, and this followed Charlotte potatoes. So another great example of second cropping. I would always say if you're going to plant potatoes, go for a Charlotte as a first early, because they crop in less than 3 months and you've got plenty of time to get another crop in. Whether it's a brassica or an allium or whatever it is that you want to grow, you can pretty much plant anything after a Charlotte potato, even carrots if you wanted to. You'd have enough time. So another example of second crops. Now, down here is an interesting one, because if you look at this, I think this is dying back too early. Now, I always think that, you know, squashes and pumpkins tend to crop as you get into early September. But look, we've got ones sort of turning now, and, you know, this one in particular, this curry, you know, that's quite a deep sort of orange. It goes like a blood orange. This is early for me. And like I say, these were turning maybe mid-July. And they've only been in the ground since, what, third week in May, something like that. So it's not like they've matured late. Sorry, not late. It's not like they've matured early but not fully grown. They've actually fully grown, but they're turning. And I'll just show you down here. We've got some jack-o'-lantern ones, which is a great example. It's turning now. That to me is early. These have been turning, like I say, a few weeks. So I don't know if you guys have had a similar experience with your pumpkins and squashes, but they're dying back already. And, you know, for the first week in August, this is a first for me. So I'd be interested if anybody's got any feedback or comments on this, and is it down to weather? I would probably suggest so, because we've noticed as well things like the blackberries behind me. We get so many blackberries and I love them. They're my favourite berry. These have been cropping, and I kid you not, these have been cropping since the third week in June. Now, I used to always associate blackberries with the end of the summer holidays as a child. We used to go and harvest them sort of like end of August time, third week in August, with my nan, and have some lovely pies and what have you. But no, they just seem to be getting earlier and earlier, and yeah, it's great because I enjoy them, and they're still cropping now, and you know, maybe that second crop will come even better than most years it does. But yeah, it's just an example of fruit early this year. But I'm loving it in the same in the same space. I'm not moaning about it. Finally, just a little snatch crop of carrots really in our little area here, which I tend to use for sort of growing classes and sort of demonstrations and all that, but we're not using it for that purpose at the minute. So yeah, another batch of carrots in, and some cheeky little parsnips. So this will probably be a personal stash if I'm honest. But yeah, just another example of that, thinking ahead to sort of autumn and early winter. And parsnips are certainly a great crop to grow, that store well in the ground through all the torrid of winter, and just get sweeter with maturity, and a great one to harvest at that time of the year. I think we have pretty much touched on everything in the growing space this early August. I hope you've enjoyed the video, and I look forward to seeing you in future ones. Please feel free to like, share and subscribe, and yeah, have a great growing summer. I hope it's all going well for you all, and the weather's holding out wherever you are. Lots of love. Take care.